Afterthought is the name of the podcast. Mike-Doocy with Sam Gannon. We're on Free for All on Fox 4, weeknights at 10:30 and Sunday nights at 10. Thought the first one went okay, huh? This is episode number 2.
Yeah, we're just trying to find a little rhythm here and bear with us. And like I said, if there's certain topics that you guys want us to talk about, let us know. Like if you guys have questions for us, you can email us. I believe we have our emails on that lower third banner, as we like to call it.
Technical jargon there, yeah.
Yes. So please send in your opinions, your requests, questions. We're up for it all.
We're going to have our first guest for Afterthought, Dave Raymond, the TV voice of the Rangers, coming up. We talk a little bit of baseball and a little bit about Dave's interesting career path. We got to talk more about this Luka thing and the aftermath. I mean, it's unlike anything we've ever seen. You know, we talked about it a little bit in the first episode, more than a little bit, but that in 30 plus years here for me, I've never seen quite this type of fan reaction. And Mavs management has somehow managed to make a bad situation even worse by the way they responded to fans who were voicing their displeasure in the arena. Number one, have you come to terms with the fact that Luka was traded? It still seems kind of surreal to see him in that Laker purple and gold, right?
Yeah, I had a viewer DM me on Instagram saying that you and I are focusing too much on the negative with this Luka trade and that players come and go, and to stop sounding like a soap opera like General Hospital. When it comes to the fans' reaction, I completely understand it. Now, as we've said, you can't cross a line. I mean, we're grown adults here. Yes, you can be really upset and you should be allowed to vocalize your grievances to a certain extent. But my whole thing is, what did the Mavs organization think was going to happen? I mean, how many more times do we have to say it? You traded away 25-year-old superstar, not yet in his prime, and you basically kicked him on the way out by questioning his work ethic. So for them not to expect fans to have this kind of reaction is a little, I don't really buy it.
Yeah, and they just botched it in so many ways. As you said, the trade was ill-advised to begin with. I mean, I don't know if this was Nico. I don't know if this was the ownership group. I don't know where it came from. But the fact that Nico, supposedly didn't really shop Luka around at all. He just focused on the Lakers because he wanted Anthony Davis so badly, and now Davis is hurt too, which is another matter altogether that we can get into. So there's the trade itself, but then there's the way that the ownership group has responded. And Dumont has responded like a guy who's never been in this situation before, right? Like a guy who's run businesses and run, casinos where he hasn't had to answer to the public the way that he does here. Now, technically speaking, he doesn't have to answer the public. It's his team. It's his family's team, majority ownership. But in reality, there's so much community interest here that it feels like a community property. And you rely on that community, on that public, on those fans for this thing to work. So not only do you trade away the face of the franchise, a top 3 player in the world, but then you essentially insult the fan base by the way you communicate with the fan base afterward. You know what I mean? Nico's immediate news conference where he was just kind of flippant. And if I'm going to defend him at all for that, he was still kind of, I think, shocked by the fact that it actually happened. And he wasn't sure how to address the media. And that's never been a strength of his anyway. But then Dumont to sound so arrogant in the interview he did with the Dallas Morning News and basically saying, without actually saying it, that Luka Doncic was just a lazy slob who didn't deserve to be on the almighty Dallas Mavericks anymore. If you've got a smoking gun here, if there's something that you're not telling us about Luka, then tell it. You've leaked everything else. Leak that. I mean, so maybe you could defend the move a little bit. But there are just these vague comments about conditioning, and if he's not serious, yeah, he's so unserious. He's led you to the Western Conference Finals and the NBA Finals, has been on the verge of the MVP practically every year that he played for your franchise. That's how unserious he was. So I don't know who's advising these people, and I think that's the problem. Nobody with any experience is. They made this move without consulting maybe the one guy who could add a little perspective here, and we don't always think of perspective and Mark Cuban in the same sentence, right? But in this case, I think had they just kind of bounced this off him ahead of time, they might have saved themselves a lot of trouble. What a disaster.
Yeah, I mean, to me, they should have, if their plan was to trade Luka and this had been something embedded in Nico's mind for a long time, they should have opened it up to the entire league, because there's a real reason for concern why this fan base should be worried about the future of this franchise and the direction it's heading in, because the health of Anthony Davis is completely up in question. He didn't even get to play through his first game with the Dallas Mavericks. You have a ton of guys that are injured. They currently don't have a big man. We'll see if they get into the playoffs. It's going to be really tough, but the West is also wide open, and so that could play to their advantage here. But seeing Luka in a Los Angeles Lakers uniform was trippy. There's just no other way to say it. And to see LeBron and Luka on the floor together, and then you had JJ Redick, former teammate of Luka's, now his head coach. There was a clip of him that went viral during their last game, his debut as a Laker, where he looked over to the bench and had to be like, wow, like he's really sitting there, and he had to be like, stop. I need to stop and focus, because that was probably always a pipe dream of his.
Yeah, he had this S-eaten grin on his face, kind of like, I can't believe this actually happened.
This is your real life and real existence. So, Mike, the reality for the Mavs is they don't have their generational superstar anymore. They have a lot of injuries they have to deal with. Fans still wanting answers to questions that, to be honest with you, I don't think they're ever going to get, but they should be allowed to express their grievances and frustration in a way that doesn't cross the line. So we'll see what happens from here.
Happy to welcome to our first guest to the Afterthought podcast.
Build it up a little bit. This is a big deal.
The longtime TV voice of the Texas Rangers, former class president at Stanford.
You're smart.
Where he was a track and field star as well. A native Nebraskan. We don't hold that against him here. Ladies and gentlemen, say hello to Dave Raymond.
Yay!
Welcome.
I can't believe I'm the first guest. This was unexpected. I'm thrilled.
Now you can brag to Craig Miller, because he always boasts that he was the first guest on Free For All, but you can boast now that you were the first guest on this podcast.
And by the way, that's like, that'll never change, and you will never forget your first. So here we are. I'm excited to be that person for you.
Seemed to make sense given the fact the Rangers are cranking up spring training. The season will be here before we know it. First of all, how did Dave Raymond go from Stanford nerd and athlete, both 2 in 1
Duality.
from what I hear, went into an entirely non-sportsy line of work, as I understand, and then ended up as a renowned baseball announcer for the Texas Rangers. How'd you get from point A to point B on that?
Well, that sounds almost linear. And it was nothing even close to that, right? It was just complete nonsense. The best way to explain it is late in my college career, such that it was, number one, I quit track my junior year because I stunk. So then I had to find something to do with myself. So I started doing some radio, campus radio stuff, student government stuff, and got involved in that. But they also made me figure out like a major and that sort of thing. So I chose communications because I was close. And then I had to figure out what to do with that. And so I said, well, I'll be a baseball broadcaster because I really love baseball. So done. I figured it all out. And then it was like 12 years of climbing around the minor leagues to, really piece it all together. So, I mean, truly starting from nothing and clueless. But then in the interim, I did not want to sell advertising and stuff like that. So in the off seasons, I would get off-season jobs. For a while, I would temp in the Bay Area at high-tech places just to meet women, and and for the paycheck.
Yeah.
And then I took a job fact-checking at Forbes, and that's how I got in the door there. I was just fact-checking articles.
Fact-checking at Forbes.
Yep. And then one day I wrote an article for them that they did not solicit or want, and
what was the article on?
Failure. So, but they were, what are you doing? I said, well, you guys are all doing all this stuff. I thought maybe I would try my hand at it. They're like, well, that's not how it goes, right? The janitor doesn't walk in here and start writing articles. Just because we're all writing articles. You're the fact checker. Stay in your lane. But then a nice editor pulled me aside a little later and started working with me. And then I started writing. Yeah, it was kind of crazy.
That's crazy. I didn't know all of this.
I never really wanted to be a writer. I mean, that was never a design. I just started doing it, I guess.
So what year is this for you with the Rangers again? Tell the people.
It's 2025, Sam. And and
how many years have you been doing it?
Yeah. No, this is I believe we're going to count it as year 10.
Year 10.
Yeah.
I always like to ask this, professional athletes always go into their off seasons and they have goals for the next season of how they want to improve. Do you have those kinds of off-season goals for yourself? Like, do you go back and analyze your broadcast from the season before and be like, okay, these are some of the things I want to hone in on? Or do you take a different kind of approach? Do you try to just step away from it and cleanse your mind?
Yeah. So I would, as you start asking that question, I really want to give you my wife's phone number because this is the time of year where it's actually kind of the worst time of year for me. It is a month of...
Because you have to spend so much time with your wife?
No.
Sorry.
It's a month of self-flagellation, regret, disgust.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound
the whole month of February is like, you just had 4.5 months. Why are you scrambling to get ready for the season? And every year in September, I'm like, well, this... I can't wait. I'm going to take 2 weeks. I'm going to chill out. And then, you know what? Every Monday, I'm going to sit down. I'm just going to write some stuff and prepare this and that. And that kind of stuff that'll be really helpful in the regular season. And then, it's Valentine's Day and I haven't done anything. Every year. And I get agitated and I feel bad. And my wife's like, what's going on? You've been doing this for like 30 years. I was like, yeah, I know. And I still can't get it right.
Oh, you've gotten it right.
Well, I mean, I can't figure out how to do my off seasons. So I just chill. I just relax.
You chill.
And I do think it's important. I think that's actually really important.
Yeah.
Being a perfectionist, big part of why you're so good at what you do. Rangers getting spring training started. We can talk a lot about the way that we think the Rangers have improved, and a lot of people are expecting them to really contend again because of people getting healthy and some of the acquisitions for this lineup as well. What's the biggest question mark in your mind coming into this spring training? What do the Rangers have to figure out here over the next month to feel better about the club going into the regular season?
I'm glad you went that direction because I just did all that other stuff for a little show called Free for All. I don't want to steal their thunder. But I think the biggest question mark is always going to be, and it's probably true for every team, I don't mean it to be a cop-out, but health, especially with the Rangers. We've seen Corey Seager, he's missed a little bit of time in these last couple of years. Thumb, sports hernia. He's not getting younger. He gets older. And, Jacob deGrom is back, and that's exciting, but he's had 2 Tommy Johns. How will he hold up? How will that look? How many innings can you reliably put on him, right? Same with like a guy like Kumar Rocker. Kumar, it's been a long time since he's pitched a full season, years. So hopefully he's going to be healthy all year and be really good. But then the question is, how much can you ask him to do? Is 120 innings too much? Is 150 out the window? I mean, I don't know. So I think health and then just management, right? And that isn't that the thing in every sport now, right? It's this workload management. And in baseball, it's one of those things they love to measure everything, and so they've done a really good job with that. But I think that's the big key. How many can you get out of deGrom? How many can you get out of Kumar Rocker? Will certain guys... Jock Peterson is not a young kid, right? He's a great add to this team. He's going to be, I think, a phenomenal addition to that lineup. But will he be able to stay healthy all year? He's had a good track record, but you have to have those concerns.
And before we let you go, fans are concerned, and they have reason to be, over how they're going to be able to watch the games on TV. It's gotten so confusing for old people like me. But you assure us that chances are, if you're watching this right now or listening to this right now, there's an easy way for you to watch Rangers baseball this year. Tell us what that is.
Well, that's a great thing is that there are a number of easy ways. But the first thing I would say is go to rangers.com/tune in, and it'll have everything there. And it's constantly updating because we are adding things like Fubo television, right? That'll be, or streaming, whatever we're calling these things now. But the Victory Plus app is going to cover everybody. So if you just want to go with the Victory Plus app, piece of cake. It's 61 cents a game. But there'll be an over-the-air package that will cover 15 Friday games. That'll be free of charge to anybody. Will be on Charter, AT&T Uverse, DirecTV. All that stuff is done. That's happening now. That's in the can, as we say. So a ton of ways to do it. You just have to figure out what works best for you if you don't already have one of those, right? Or you may want to hold out in hopes that your whatever provider you're using now ends up climbing on board. That could happen as well. But Rangers.com/tune in gives you all the answers and will constantly be updated.
Great.
Dave Raymond, thanks very much. Enjoy your time in Arizona at spring training. We'll see you at the ballpark.
Thank you for your time.
I hope this won't be the last.
No,
not at all.
absolutely not.
Do anything next week?
Come back whenever you want.
Well, the Eagles dominate the Chiefs to win Super Bowl 59, and we have to bring it back to the Cowboys now, somehow, some way, since they never go to the Super Bowl. We have
That
to
game was boring, though,
figure out
wasn't it?
connections. Yeah, and you know, for the
boring.
longest time, Super Bowls were always that way, and then we've had a nice run of pretty competitive, thrilling games, and we got a little unlucky here at the old Fox network with that one, but it still set a record for viewership. Man, I could not have been more wrong. I thought, I was telling everybody going into the game, I don't know who's going to win necessarily. But one thing I do know is it's going to be a close game. Yeah.
Well,
Mr. Sports.
We all
coming
thought
through
it
here.
was going to be close. I mean, I picked the Eagles, I'd like to say. I thought that they were going to win, but I thought it was going to be really close. I had no idea that they were going to blow the Kansas City Chiefs out of the water there. And it was surprising in terms of seeing Patrick Mahomes look a little rattled. You don't see him look rattled like that. And the Eagles defense all over it.
Eagles were able to, Fangio's defense was able to get pressure on him without blitzing for the most part, which was huge. And he just didn't have an answer. He couldn't find anybody down the field. He was constantly under pressure. And then Jalen Hurts, just Mr. Solid running that offense. Because Barkley, I thought if the Eagles were going to win, obviously Saquon Barkley was going to have a huge day. That wasn't the case, but the Philadelphia defense was the story. And then after the Super Bowl, a couple of days after the Super Bowl, Dak Prescott and Troy Aikman were doing an event for the Children's Cancer Fund out at North Park, and I was out there for that, and I asked Dak, how far do you think you guys are from the level of the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles? And Dak basically said, and it's funny how weird comments kind of go viral. Mm-hmm. He kind of snapped back and said, well, we're competing with them every year. And, I think we're close. It's up to us to finish it off, something to that effect. But in reality, there seems to be a wide gap, right, between these two teams, these two franchises right now. I heard somebody, I thought, put it well on radio or TV talk show that I saw, asking, is there a single position group where you would trade what the Cowboys have for what the Eagles have? And it's hard to think of one other than maybe special teams, maybe the kicker. Obviously, Micah Parsons can play on any team, including Philadelphia. CeeDee Lamb can play on any team, including Philadelphia. But the Eagles are deeper at wide receiver. Going into last year, I would have taken Dak over Jalen Hurts. Now I wouldn't, just because Hurts has proven himself to be such a leader, such a winner. And that's how we judge quarterbacks, right? I'm sorry. It just is. And Hurts can run the ball so much more effectively than Dak can. That's no longer part of Dak Prescott's game. And that's a problem in terms of the way it limits the way that you can call your offense if you're Brian Schottenheimer.
Yeah, and I think this coming season for the Cowboys more than ever, we've talked about Dak Prescott being under a microscope, and now I think he's going to be under that microscope more than anyone else, front and center, because the jury is still out if he can be the quarterback to take this team to the Super Bowl. I know before this past year, because obviously Dak got hurt, and, he was injured for 2 seasons under head coach Mike McCarthy. Now he has Schottenheimer, but he has underperformed come playoff time, and that's just a fact. You can look at the 12-win seasons for 3 consecutive years. That's all well and great, but as you said, teams are going to be judged on Super Bowl titles. So how far away are they? Right now, they're far, because that drought is 29 years and counting, and then you have your arch rival who has appeared in 2 Super Bowls in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
So, and I just think nothing Dak will say to this fan base right now is going to appease them, but I just think, I don't know, why not come out and say, listen, we believe we can get there, but there's work to be done, and it starts with me. Say something maybe more like that, and then you can have fans being like, yes, come out and say it. We're underperforming, we have. It doesn't mean you're not a leader of the team, but no, this team has ways to go, and I think free agency is going to be really interesting. The draft, what moves are they going to make? Because right now, they're in a tough division. You watch 2 of your rivals within your division play for a spot in the Super Bowl. And so, yeah, there's a lot of questions that this franchise needs to figure out.
It's funny. I was thinking about how Jerry is viewing this Luka backlash from the Mavericks. And people assume that Jerry's just thankful that the Mavs are letting him off the hook, and that now there's a guy who's perceived to be an even worse GM in the market than Jerry is, and that being Nico Harrison. But I'll bet there's a little tiny bit of Jerry that's jealous of all this attention that the Mavs are getting, even though it's negative attention, because that's all Jerry's been able to hang his hat on the last 29 years, because they haven't won a damn thing. So at least he's been able to stay in the spotlight. They're the team everybody's talking about in this market. They don't even have that now.
I mean, Jerry can feel that way, and really the entire NFL, because the week of the Super Bowl, this Luka trade dominated the headlines. That was a bigger storyline than the Super Bowl, between the Chiefs and the Eagles. And that's just true, because no one expected this. It's one of the most unprecedented trades probably in sports. So, yeah, I'm sure Jerry's sitting back thinking, all right, well, my time will be coming soon before I get in front of the media again for the draft. And, we'll start this thing over again and see what we got, and see you in Oxnard.
Maybe we'll get Jerry in here to do Afterthought sometime.
Maybe
Thanks to
so.
Dave Raymond for coming in. We'll see you next time.